I never expected a cleaner to save my son with autism. And his father was watching all along. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stood frozen in the living room, my eyes glued to the chaos unfolding before me. Toys scattered across the floor like fallen soldiers, and my son, Ethan, a 6-year-old with bright blue eyes that sparkled with innocence, was trapped inside his own world. He shrieked, the sound echoing off the walls, high-pitched and desperate. That day began like any other. I kissed Ethan's forehead, the soft warmth bringing fleeting comfort to my worried heart. Autism had built walls around him, and he was forever reaching out, yet always slipping further away. I felt the tightness in my chest as I recalled the countless hours spent trying to enter his world, only to be met with the chilling silence that often followed, but today felt different. There was a whisper in the air, a strange, electric tension that made my skin prickle. The cleaner, a middle-aged woman with tangled hair and kind eyes, arrived just before my husband, Mark. I barely looked up as she flicked the vacuum on, her presence felt more like an intrusion than assistance. Mark stood at a distance, his expression unreadable. I knew he had his own battles, but it felt like he watched Ethan and me through a glass wall, just observing. The cleaner moved like a shadow, her movements fluid and almost enchanting. I dismissed her into the background while I fought with Ethan. But then I noticed her gaze. She seemed captivated by him. Her eyes followed Ethan as he danced nervously around the room, lost to the chaos of his mind. I dismissed it again, I was too absorbed in my own despair. Then it happened. Ethan flipped the coffee table, his tiny hands trembling, tears streaming down his cheeks. His world was spiraling, and everything felt hopeless. I rushed to him, but before I could reach him, the cleaner stepped forward. It was as if time slowed. Her hands reached towards him, calm and steady. I wanted to scream, to pull her back, to protect him. "Ethan," she said softly, and my heart cracked at the gentleness in her voice. In that moment, she wasn't just a cleaner, she was a beacon of some unexplainable hope. Ethan froze, gazing at her as she knelt to his level, the vacuum forgotten in the corner. She spoke to him in a melody that transcended words. I held my breath, feeling a strange warmth fill the room, cracking open my heart that had long been encased in fear. I wanted to believe that something miraculous was happening, but doubt gnawed at me. Mark's eyes flicked to me, his expression shifting between bewilderment and something deeper. Was it pride? I watched, enthralled. The air thickened with expectation. Suddenly, Ethan's face softened, the wildness retreating as he seemed to connect with her. My heart raced frantically. Was this real? Did this stranger hold the key to unlock my son's heart? And then, the world fell silent again, we held our breaths collectively. What just happened? The tension hung thickly in the air, like the last note of a haunting song, echoing long after the music stops. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I woke the next morning with a strange mix of hope and anxiety swirling in my stomach, the silent remnants of yesterday's encounter echoing in my mind. Ethan was still asleep, his eyelids fluttering gently, his small body cocooned under a blanket. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting gentle rays on his face, revealing a peace I rarely saw. It was fleeting, ephemeral, like a delicate wisp of smoke. Mark had already left for work, a note left on the kitchen table in his scrawled handwriting: "He'll be home early. Let's talk." I didn't know if that was a promise or a threat. We had been walking on a tightrope for a while now, our relationship strained under the weight of unspoken fears and unmet expectations. I sighed, running a hand through my hair, already messy from a night of restless sleep. As the day progressed, the memory of the cleaner's calm presence lingered like an unanswered question. I felt a pull to open Ethan's world to this stranger. I found myself daydreaming about bringing her back. What if she could help him in ways I hadn't even imagined? But would it be crossing a boundary? Would it complicate things even further? After Ethan finished his breakfast, a single slice of toast cut into triangles, I took a leap of faith. How about we go to the park today? I suggested, knowing how much he loved the swings. His eyes lit up for a fraction of a second before he returned to his familiar headspace. The loud cacophony of the outside world flooded his thoughts. I had come to recognize the signs, the tightening of his small fists, the way he fixated on a single object today. It was a plastic dinosaur that had somehow found its way to the breakfast table. As we headed to the park, I couldn't shake the memory of the cleaner's gentle voice, the way Ethan's eyes had sparkled with something more than just curiosity. Maybe I needed to reach out. She seemed to have a way with him, a gift that felt like the spark I had been longing for. When we arrived, the park was alive with the sounds of children laughing and playing. The bright colors of swings and slides seemed overwhelming. Ethan stood frozen at the entrance, his small frame rigid, overwhelmed by the sensory overload. I knelt down beside him, trying to decipher his tangled emotions. "It's okay, buddy. We can go to the swings," I offered, my voice steady despite the thundering of my heart. That he looked up at me, his eyes shimmering with indecision, a reflection of my own internal tumult. Just as I was about to take his hand and lead him away from the crowd, a little girl dashed past us, her laughter ringing sweetly in the air. Ethan's gaze followed her, curiosity flickering in those bright blue eyes. "Want to go?" I asked, emboldened by the moment. Slowly, he nodded, and together we ventured into the heart of the park. That we found the swings, and I pushed him gently while talking to him about the clouds and the funny shapes they made. For a moment, he seemed to forget the world around him, momentarily lost to the glee of soaring high above the ground. I felt a warm rush of connection, a rare moment where the heavy weight of autism didn't feel so burdensome. But as quickly as it arrived, the warmth faded. The moment ended when a group of children began to shout and play nearby, their voices colliding in a cacophony that shattered the fragile peace we had found. Ethan's face contorted as he began to withdraw. Panic surged within me. I reached out, desperate to anchor him back. "Ethan, look at me," I called, but he was slipping away again. He covered his ears, his whole body trembling, and just like that, my heart clenched. Dark clouds rolled in, and the shadows returned. Suddenly, a figure appeared beside us, clad in an apron smeared with colorful paint. It was the cleaner. My breath caught in my throat as she approached us, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Ethan," she said, kneeling beside him, her voice like a warm balm against the chaos that surrounded us. "It's all right. You're safe here." That I watched in awe as Ethan looked at her, the panic beginning to recede. There was something unearthly about her ability to soothe him, a tether that pulled him back from the brink of his tempestuous mind. I felt hope surge within me, fierce and dizzying. Then, as if fate had decided to test me once more, my phone buzzed with a message. Turning my attention away from the cleaner and Ethan, I glanced down, my heart sinking as I read the words on the screen. "I'll need to take time off for the surgery. We need to talk about our son." The message was from Mark. I looked back. The connection between Ethan and the cleaner felt like a lifeline slipping through my fingers. The world threatened to collide around me, and dread settled deep in my gut. "Will you stay?" I whispered, hope mingling with fear, knowing that she could be the one thing that might finally bridge the terrible divide between Ethan and me, just as it threatened to crack wide open. As the cleaner knelt beside Ethan, her presence seemed to cut through the noise of the park, a silent sanctuary amidst the chaos. I felt as if I were watching a delicate dance unfold, a simple exchange, yet monumental, as she quietly coaxed the anxiety from my son's body with gentle words and patient gestures. I stood frozen, my heart racing, unsure whether to embrace this moment of connection or to run from the implications it might hold. Ethan's breathing began to slow under her watchful gaze, and slowly, the tremor subsided. He blinked up at her, curious now, his small hands loosening their grip on his ears. I could hardly breathe as I witnessed the fragile transformation. It felt like a miracle of sunlight piercing through a heavy fog. But just as quickly, doubt crept in. The urgency of Mark's message loomed large in my mind, threatening to shatter this newfound peace. The cleaner turned towards me, her eyes filled with understanding. He just needs time and a space to feel safe. We can talk through this, together, she said with a confidence that seemed both reassuring and terrifying. My voice caught. Should I trust her? What if Mark didn't approve? What if this connection was just another fleeting moment, a mirage in my desperate search for help? Ethan twisted in the swing, excitement rekindled, casting all worries aside in that brief moment of respite. The cleaner's face softened as she watched him, her expression a mix of compassion and determination. It's remarkable how he responds to kindness. Sometimes, children like him just need to know they're not alone. She reached out and brushed a stray hair from his forehead, her touch gentle as she said, "You're a brave little Dino, aren't you?" His lips twitched into a shy smile, and for an instant, it was as if the clouds above us lightened. I felt a pang in my chest. A memory sparked as I caught sight of the little girl, her laughter echoing through the air like a distant bell. I opened my mouth to ask the cleaner if she would meet with us again, to support Ethan as he navigated this vast, unpredictable world. But the moment was interrupted by a harsh voice breaking across the park. "Ethan! Let's go!" Mark's face was taut with frustration, eyes narrowing in that all-too-familiar way. The reality of the present crashed against the fragile joy I had felt only moments earlier. I glanced between Mark and the cleaner, whose expression had shifted ever so slightly, concern etching her brow. I don't think I began to protest, to explain, but Mark's next words silenced me. "I saw you here. You think you can figure all this out without my help?" His voice was edged with anger, each syllable slicing through the tender moment I had found with Ethan and the cleaner. "Mark," I breathed, my heart pounding. He was claiming ground in a battle I thought we had fought together. My voice faltered under the weight of his accusation, and I felt my chest constrict as I sensed Ethan shrink back, confusion flickering across his face. "Can we just talk?" Mark demanded, his frustration spilling over into the air like a thick fog. "You're pushing away the few resources we have. This isn't going to work if you don't trust me." The cleaner stood, her gentle aura momentarily stalled by Mark's towering presence. "It's all right. I understand," she offered softly, turning to Ethan. "We can play together another time, okay?" It sounded like a promise, but the heaviness of the moment made it feel like a goodbye. As Mark reached out to take Ethan's hand, pulling him away from the swing, I felt a surge of emotion. "Wait!" I cried, holding the weight of the moment in my heart. "Please, can we talk about what just happened?" But Mark was already moving, taking Ethan along with him, my son's small figure receding into the gathering throngs of children. "We'll figure this out later," he tossed over his shoulder, and just like that, he was gone, lost in the chaos that I had fought so hard to shield Ethan from. The cleaner lingered for a heartbeat longer, her gaze steady as she watched them leave. There was a sadness in her eyes, a flicker of understanding. That passed between us, binding us in our shared concern for Ethan. "Don't give up," she murmured, and then she turned, fading into the very background that had first anchored my son. Me standing alone on the edges of the park, the weight of uncertainty pressing down as I recalled that single message looming in my mind. How could I fight for Ethan and navigate my tumultuous relationship with Mark all at once? As I turned to leave, my heart pounding, I couldn't shake the feeling that the world was conspired against us. And just as I began to walk away, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark that read, "I found something out about Ethan that you need to know. Meet me outside the house." A cold shiver raced down my spine. What had he uncovered? What secret lay at the heart of it all? As I stood on the sidewalk, the gentle hum of the park in the distance, my heart drummed an anxious tattoo against my chest. The buzz of Mark's message loomed over me like a thundercloud, heavy and dark. Underneath the swirling emotions that threatened to pull me under, I was keenly aware that something had shifted in our fragile world. Something in Ethan's relationship with his father was either about to crack wide open or forge a connection they had yet to discover, with each step towards our home, I replayed the scene by the swings in my mind. The cleaner's soothing presence, Ethan's fleeting smile, these felt like fragile threads connecting me to hope amidst chaos. But Mark's words had brought back the weight of reality. They echoed in my mind. I found something out about Ethan. What could he possibly have uncovered that made it necessary for me to meet him? As I approached our house, the wind snagged playfully at my thoughts but couldn't disperse the dread settling in my stomach. It could be anything, I told myself, a scrap of a diagnosis he had twisted into some sort of revelation. Or perhaps it was something more troubling, something that cast a shadow on the beauty we had begun to recognize in Ethan's quirks. My feet felt leaden as I opened the front door, the familiar creak sounding like a warning bell. Inside, the air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant ticking of the clock, marking time like a metronome of worry. Mark was already pacing in the small living room, his face taut with a mix of excitement and frustration. He turned as I entered, eyes wide and intense. Without a greeting, he gestured wildly, a physical manifestation of his anxiety. "Sit down," he commanded, the edge in his voice cutting through the air. Tentatively, I lowered myself onto the edge of the sofa, both curious and apprehensive. "I've been doing more research," he started, his tone dropping as if he were about to share some grave secret. "About what Ethan might be experiencing." As he spoke, I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, flushing with a mix of embarrassment and anger. It was always like this with him, talking over me, as though I wasn't the one spending every day trying to understand our son, every minute unraveling the complicated landscape of his world. "Mark, I want to be included in this. You can't just—" "I found something you need to see," he interrupted, pulling out his phone. My heart raced, a painful thumping that echoed in my ears. "I came across a group online," he continued, tilting his screen to face me. "Parents of kids like him. They talk about meltdowns, sensory overload, isolation, everything." My stomach twisted as I peered closer. The words blurred together, each sentence striking like an arrow aimed at the core of my anxieties. But as I scanned the screen, something else caught my eye. A thread titled "Unusual Diagnosis." My heart dropped into the pit of my stomach. "Mark, what does this mean? Are you saying Ethan could have something else?" The fear crept into my voice, betraying the confidence I had hoped to exude. "Not just something, Charlotte," he followed with grim determination. "Something serious. More than just autism. They mention conditions that can mimic or coexist with it. I think we need to get a more thorough evaluation." A wave of confusion washed over me. My mind was a storm of thoughts battling for clarity. It felt like all the pieces of our puzzle were shifting, threatening to revert to chaos. "Mark, why didn't you bring this up before? Why didn't you trust me with this sooner?" He shook his head, the frustration mounting. "I needed to know more before I dragged you into this. Not everything is going to be easy to handle. We have to stay rational." Rational? The word hung in the air like an accusation. "Do you really think I could ever be rational about our son's well-being?" In that moment, I was overcome by the weight of it all, the unsteady ground beneath us, the lack of communication, the unbridled fear of losing control of our lives. The yearning for a deeper, kinder connection both with Ethan and with Mark seemed to slip farther from reach. And then, as if ripped from the pages of an unseen script, Mark's phone buzzed fiercely in his hand, pulling us both back to the present moment. He glanced at the screen, his face draining of color. "It's the principal from Ethan's school," he murmured, narrowing his eyes on the message as though it contained the meaning of life itself. "She says we need to talk. Something happened today." My pulse quickened, dread melding with confusion. "What happened? Was it Ethan?" "I don't know. She just says we need to come in." He turned to me, eyes frantic and witty, a reflection of the turmoil swishing around in my own chest. The realization sank in deeply. Our little world, fragile and already frayed, was about to be exposed to another level of scrutiny. Questions raced through my mind as I prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Together, we would have to navigate this new terrain, balancing on the precipice of our fears and hopes. But in the wings, the blonde cleaner lingered in my thoughts, her gentle reassurance, her understanding, and I found myself clinging to the notion that a flicker of hope was not entirely extinguished. This time, I took a step toward the door, steeling myself for the unknown. We could unearth truths together, building bridges over the gaping chasms of uncertainty, but as I reached for the doorknob, a chilling thought struck like a spear through the haze. What if this meeting led to revelations we weren't prepared for, truths that could unravel us further? The air thickened as I pushed through, intangible fear tightening its grip. Once outside, the clamor of life continued around us, oblivious to the tempest within. Little did I know, the next revelation would be about not just Ethan, but secrets buried far deeper than I ever expected. The principal's office loomed before us like a stage set for a drama none of us wanted. The nameplate on her door was dull and unfriendly, casting a gray shadow over the prospect of what awaited inside. Mark's hand found mine, squeezing it tightly, and I could feel the pulse of his anxiety resonate within me. It was a connection that spoke volumes, yet all the warmth of that moment slowly ebbed into the coldness that surrounded us. "Are you ready?" he asked, his breath shaky with uncertainty that I wished I could answer with unyielding confidence, but instead, I drew a deep breath and nodded, even though my heart fought against the resolve I tried to muster. "Let's just find out what's going on," I replied, my voice wavering as I pushed the door open. The smell of old wood mixed with the faint aroma of stale coffee, a stark reminder of the seriousness tangled in this setting. The principal, Mrs. Roberts, sat behind a large desk, flanked by two empty chairs that looked more like barriers than places to sit. She looked up, her expression wavering between professional and sympathetic. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," she began, her voice steady yet laced with an underlying tension. "I believe we need to discuss some urgent matters concerning Ethan." That I felt a chill creep down my spine. Mark and I took our seats, my leg bouncing nervously as I awaited the news that could shatter the delicate equilibrium of our lives. In the brief silence that followed, Mrs. Roberts cleared her throat, and I caught the flicker of concern in her eyes. "This afternoon, Ethan had an incident during recess. It was unexpected." The word incident hovered in the air like a storm cloud, thickening the atmosphere as it settled between us. "What kind of incident?" I managed to ask, my voice thin. "It was a sensory overload, I believe. He was playing with a group of children when noises from the swings, the usual laughter and chatter, seemed to overwhelm him. He became distressed and started crying, which led to him bolting from the playground." As I processed her words, a part of me felt my chest tighten, grappling with the all-too-familiar feeling of helplessness. I glanced at Mark, who now had gone pale, his mouth a grim line. He ran towards the street, but fortunately, a staff member was able to intervene before anything serious happened, she added, picking up on the worry that fused us in that moment. My mind spiraled with questions. Was this a sign of regression? I had thought we were making progress, starting to understand this world that Ethan inhabited. Now, everything felt like it was unraveling again, the fabric of our hopeful narrative disintegrating into fear and uncertainty. "Ethan has been doing well with his accommodations," Mark spoke, his voice losing its steadiness. "What changed? Is something at school overwhelming him?" Mrs. Roberts nodded slightly, her hands clasped firmly on the desk. "That's what we are trying to understand. I think Ethan may need more support, perhaps a dedicated aide during recess to help him navigate social interactions. The environment isn't always conducive to his needs." The thought of Ethan needing more support painted a picture I had hoped to avoid, another label grafted onto him as if the world was trying to define him by his struggles rather than his spirit. But at that moment, I spotted a flicker of something positive in Mrs. Roberts' eyes, a glimmer of concern, a desire to help. What if the staff member who helped him could be present, a familiar face? Would that help ease his feeling of being overwhelmed? I found myself saying, my heart aching for him. Mark leaned forward, initiative sparking in his eyes. "Yes, that makes sense. It could create a bridge for him. Someone he can rely on while he navigates those situations." Mrs. Roberts allowed herself a small smile, perhaps grateful to see us collaborating, flesh and blood united over an ocean of fears. "I think that's a wonderful idea." But just as a straw of hope began to build within me, she added, "However, there may be other issues we need to address as well." My stomach nodded. Again at her words, now threaded with the fear of the unknown. What do you mean? There are signs that indicate Ethan may be experiencing behavioral patterns we need to address in conjunction with his emotional challenges. His reactions during school, although they stem from sensory issues, suggest deeper anxieties that could manifest as behavioral struggles. It might be contributing to these incidents. Mark and I exchanged solemn glances, a wordless understanding passing between us. The darkness seemed to spill closer, ready to engulf the small flicker of light we had just ignited. That we can pursue additional evaluations, the principal suggested, her tone calm amid the mounting chaos of our thoughts. I believe charting his emotional progress and intervening early may help prevent further incidents. Before either of us could respond, the door creaked open, revealing a tall figure that stole my breath. It was Ethan's teacher, Mrs. Sanders, the one person I thought held him in tender regard ever since he'd stepped into her classroom, a lifeline amid the chaos of education. "Excuse me, Mrs. Roberts," she started, her face glowing with an unusual vibrance. "I just wanted to let you know, I saw Ethan with the others during lunch, and he was laughing and even joining in with a game. He had moments of joy that I haven't seen in a while." Her words flowed over me like cool water on a sweltering day, washing away fragments of panic. Maybe there was still a chance for Ethan, a reminder of the boy we knew beyond all the labels, hiding beneath the confusion. Before I could respond, however, the principal's phone buzzed insistently, cutting through the moment. She glanced at the screen and her expression abruptly shifted, concern morphing into shock. "Oh my God, it's urgent," she whispered, the color draining from her face as she read. "I need to take this. I'll be right back." As she rushed out of the room, marking silence in her absence, I turned to Mark, seeking solace in his eyes. My heart raced, but in the depths of that weariness, the news from Mrs. Sanders hung still in the air, reminding me that even amidst the storm, there were moments of grace emerging. But just as a smile tugged at my lips, the door swung open once more, revealing a familiar face I never expected to see again. Ethan's father coming to witness the fallout of our journey, but this time, I could see his mind flickering with questions, and uncertainty laced his gaze, and with that, I knew our world had not only shifted further than I anticipated, it was on the brink of unraveling, exposing truths that were destined to collide in the most unsuspected ways. The room felt charged, a palpable silence crashing over us like a wave on a rocky shore. Ethan's father stood at the threshold, wearing a look of concern and confusion as if he had stepped into a narrative he barely understood. His presence, a ghost from the past, shifted the dynamic of our private storm into something larger, more chaotic. "Mark?" he asked, the surprise in his voice punctuated by disbelief as he took in my husband's rigid posture and the weight of the moment we were stuck inside. "What's going on?" Mark's jaw tightened, and the words caught in his throat. I sensed the rift in our once unified front, a fissure widening with every beat of silence stretching between us. Before I could intervene, Mrs. Sanders stepped forward, her usually warm demeanor now tempered with urgency. "Ethan had a slight incident during recess today," she explained delicately, but the gravity of the situation clung heavily to her every word. "We think he may need additional support." Ethan's father interrupted, disbelief crackling in his voice. "He's not just a project that needs fixing. You can't just slap a label on him and expect that to solve everything." The sharpness in his tone sliced through the air like glass, and I instinctively looked to Mark, who appeared uncharacteristically mute, seemingly trapped between the jagged pieces of remembrance and current pain. "Ethan is not broken," I interjected, the need to defend our son igniting a fire deep within me. "He is extraordinary in ways you can't even begin to comprehend. But he needs guidance, and we want to help him thrive." "I am just saying," he continued, his expression shifting between defensiveness and sorrow. "I thought we were dealing with everything. I can't keep being told there are more issues we didn't catch." "Maybe it's not about you keeping up," Mark finally replied, his voice steadying with a resolute confidence. "This is about Ethan, his journey, his needs. You need to realize that not all struggles are visible." The words hung between us, raw and crushing, and the atmosphere thickened with unresolved tension. As the weight of our collective histories loomed in the unacknowledged corners of the room, I tried to grasp the flicker of hope that had ignited Ethan's brief moment of laughter and joy, now drowning beneath the currents of our discord. "What are you doing here, anyway?" I blurted out, confusion merging with vulnerability as I faced him. "Isn't it a little late for being concerned?" His face etched with regret. He took a step forward, but his eyes flicked to Mark. "I want to be involved, okay? I want to understand. But I didn't know I thought things were getting better." In that instant, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't anticipated, a frail connection, the beginnings of recognition, perhaps even an underlying need shared between us. He wasn't just an intruder into the chaos but a father who had loved and lost, trying to reclaim space when the path ahead felt impossible. "Ethan is still Ethan," Mrs. Sanders reminded softly, a stabilizing force amid the turmoil swirling around us. "And he can have good moments alongside the challenges. We just need to navigate both together." Suddenly, the principal returned, her expression grave, her phone still clutched tightly in her hand. "I'm sorry for the interruption, but I just received alarming news from the district." "About what?" Mark asked, apprehension sharpening his voice. "There's been a serious incident involving several students. A family emergency has been declared. I need to assemble a meeting quickly to address how we're handling the situation." The word emergency hung heavily, twisting my stomach in knots, as a deeper wave of uncertainty crashed over us. My gaze darted to Ethan's father, whose eyes were wide now, processing the gravity of the unfolding scene. "What are you saying?" he demanded, the tension screeching back into his voice. "Is Ethan okay?" "I can assure you that Ethan is safe," Mrs. Roberts replied, calm yet resolute. "But you need to understand that this could cause waves of panic across the school, impacting every child. We all will need to be prepared." That I waited, heart pounding, as Mark took a breath and leaned into the conversation, visibly gathering resolve. "We can help Ethan through this. Whatever it takes, we're all in this together, right?" Ethan's father nodded slowly, careful deliberation crossing his features, but just as I felt a flicker of optimism rise, the enormity of the moment threatened to eclipse any of my fleeting hopes. Mrs. Roberts nodded and turned towards me. "I think organizing a parent meeting for all families involved would be beneficial. We should address this openly and work towards solutions together, building a safe network for our children." "Let's aim for empathy," I suggested, remembering Ethan's shimmering moments of joy even amid the chaos. "If we all work together, parents, teachers, and the kids, we might just help them feel more anchored." Mark looked at me with gentle encouragement, but as Ethan's father stepped closer toward us, his expression shifted. "I never should have left," he whispered, the guilt bleeding into his voice. I thought I could give you both space, but I see now how that may have hurt Ethan." That my heart ached with understanding but was pinned, weighted by the uncertainty of the road ahead. Frenzies of doubt threatened the small patch of warmth we tentatively harbored. Before anyone could respond, the loudspeaker echoed through the halls, a disembodied voice announcing lockdown procedures due to the brewing crisis, an alert that injected fear into the already tense atmosphere. "Is this really happening?" Ethan's father breathed, unknowing of the storm that had not only rolled through the school but threatened to sweep us all into its currents. And in that moment, as we floundered and felt the weight of impending decisions press upon us, I realized, we were all at the mercy of life's unpredictable waves, fighting not just for Ethan but for a newfound understanding amidst the chaos we never expected. The loudspeaker's mechanical voice left us momentarily paralyzed, the sudden reality of lockdown cutting through our fraught exchanges. Panic and confusion swirled in the air like moths against fluorescent light, nervous energy pushing everyone to seek answers where none existed. "Everyone stay calm," Mrs. Roberts instructed, her authority simmering beneath layers of uncertainty. The tension in the room thickened, as if our collective anxieties had formed a tangible barrier. I turned to Mark, exchanging a silent understanding rooted in the shared weight of worry for our son. Ethan's father stood frozen near the door, uncertainty etched into his expression. "What's happening? Is Ethan safe?" I watched as Mrs. Sanders pulled out her phone, eyes darting to the screen. "They're saying we have to keep the children in place until further instructions. There was an incident at another school nearby." Her words tumbled over each other, barely containing the ferocity of her concern. Every heartbeat resonated in my ears as I focused on Ethan, who clung to his father's leg, eyes wide and frightened. It was as if our chaotic conversation had been swept away by an unrelenting tide, leaving only this raw moment of vulnerability. "Ethan. I knelt before him, hoping to anchor his spiraling thoughts. I need you to stay close to Daddy. We're just going to be here for a little while. He nodded, pulling in a breath as I caught a glimmer of trust, a flicker of the radiant boy I adored, despite the storm raging around us. But even as I searched for the reassurance I needed, the tension in his father's expression deepened, battling the lines of apology and fear etched across his face. Meanwhile, the distant sirens began their mournful wails, drawing closer to our reality like a haunting melody. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest, trying to quell the rising tide of anxiety as Mark took a protective stance beside Ethan, arms crossed tightly. "We'll find a way to make sense of this," he assured, voice low but firm, drawing strength from the chaos. I could feel the small flame of hope flicker again, finding comfort in his presence even amid the uncertainty that engulfed us. What if it's something more? Ethan's father mumbled, glancing toward Mrs. Roberts and anticipating the worst. What if they're hurting other kids? What if his voice trailed off, drowned by the shadows of his own fears? That it shouldn't be about fear, the kids need to know they're safe, I interjected, sensing the shift in the atmosphere as I grasped for words filled with conviction. Let's focus on what we can do together. Mrs. Sanders stepped forward, her fierce determination cutting through the suffocating air. Let's not allow this to create more divide. If we can remain calm and communicate openly, the kids will feel that too. We need each other. Suddenly, an unexpected knock came from the window, the sound jarring us back to our surroundings. A janitor, his face obscured by fear-fueled adrenaline, motioned urgently for Mrs. Roberts to step outside. The urgency in his posture sent a shiver racing down my spine as he pointed toward a group gathered in the distance, shadows lengthening through the hall. What is it? What's happening? Ethan's father demanded, his voice rising as anxiety thickened into a palpable anxiety. Stay with Ethan. I called as Mrs. Roberts hesitated, unsure whether to risk the proximity of the unknown. But instinctively, I felt the pull of danger inching closer. Whatever had transpired outside, it was not one that could easily be dismissed. Mark's eyes met mine, and for a brief second, we shared a silent promise that we would protect our son, no matter the cost. Just as Mrs. Roberts stepped outside, I faced Ethan again, crouching to his level. It's all right, buddy. I'm right here. Just stay close, okay? In that moment, a flicker of warmth radiated from Ethan's hand as he reached for mine, intertwining our fingers. I felt his little pulse echoing against my palm, grounding me as the world outside threatened to fracture further. Suddenly, a loud shout pierced through the classroom doors, marking the threshold of chaos. I spun, heart racing, just as Ethan's father lunged forward, urgency blazing in his eyes. No. I can't let you take him. Take who? What are you talking about? I felt the panic rise sharply as faces blurred in chaos. The janitor's warnings reached us with ominous certainty. We need to evacuate everyone now. It's not safe here. My heart sank, and for a fleeting moment, I feared the very ground beneath us might crumble. What had been a sanctuary only moments ago became a battleground for safety and survival. The sense of impending danger collided with my desire to shield Ethan from everything unfathomable. With a shuddering breath, I stepped forward, the words escaping my lips before fully forming. Ethan, listen to me. You need to follow your dad, all right? Trust him to keep you safe. Mark grabbed onto Ethan's shoulder, squeezing it reassuringly. And in the midst of chaos, it became painfully clear, our paths were intersecting once again, standing at the crossroads of redemption and misunderstanding, fear and trust. As Ethan's father rallied behind us, the once tangible connection we started to build now hung in the delicate balance of a fraying thread, every second bringing us closer to unpredictable uncertainty or transforming fear into an unexpected source of strength. Then, as the chaotic clamor surged outside, I realized I never expected a cleaner to save my son with autism. And his father was watching all along, caught between the needs of a child he felt absent for and a world catering only to shadows. What would it take to bridge the gap we feared wouldn't be crossed? The door slammed open one last time, thrusting in the urgency that called us forward. We need to go now. The janitor's panicked voice echoed in every corner of my mind as I gripped Ethan's hand tighter, sensing the immensity of the moment tipping us into the unknown. We were out of time, but the weight of what lay ahead loomed like a storm cloud gathering in the distance, both ominous and inescapable. The corridor pulsed with an energy that felt like an electric current, tinged with fear and desperate resolve. My heart raced as I led Ethan and Mark toward the emergency exits, every step echoing the urgency pounding in my chest. The janitor moved ahead, his eyes scanning for any threats while ushering us into the unknown. Outside felt like a different world, sunlight fighting through the shadows cast by people rushing in every direction. The chaos was almost surreal, parents shouting for their children, sirens wailing, a cacophony of confusion mingling with the metallic tang of fear. "Stay close to me, Ethan," I urged as we hurried through the throng, aware that the strength of the crowd surged and shimmered like a living thing, unpredictable and foreboding. "Why don't they let us go?" Ethan's voice quivered like fragile glass, and I saw Mark's eyes flash with concern. It was a question I couldn't answer, not without feeling the weight of my own apprehensions constricting around my heart. "People are just a little scared right now, buddy. We have to trust that everyone is doing their best to keep us safe," I said, hoping it would ease his worry. The tenuous assurance in my voice fell short as I sensed the shadows of doubt creeping into my own mind. Behind us, tensions flared. A mother was frantically searching for her daughter, words spilling forth in a rising wave of desperation. "Anna! Anna! Where are you?" Her cries pierced through the disarray, each syllable a testament to the profound fear that bound us all together in a collective heartbeat of parental anxiety. It was then that I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve, and I turned to see an elderly woman clutching a small boy to her side, his fingers fidgeting nervously with a toy truck. The woman offered a soft smile, tilting her head in an encouraging manner. "We've all got someone to protect. Let's do this together," she said, her voice steadying in the turmoil like a still pond. Finding solace in her words, I felt a flicker of hope ignite once more. I exchanged a brief glance with Mark, a silent acknowledgement of our shared purpose. The way he held on to Ethan, as if he were a fragile treasure, reminded me of why we were fighting against the encroaching darkness. As we pushed onward, a sudden shout erupted from the back. "This way! Over here!" An officer had appeared, standing tall against the surging tide, directing the panicked crowd with a firm yet reassuring hand. I felt an instinctual pull to follow, driven by the need for guidance amidst the chaos. "Come on. Let's move," Mark urged, grabbing Ethan's hand with newfound determination, leading us towards the officer. Yet the more we advanced, the more the air thickened with tension, every heartbeat tying us closer to a collective fear that we couldn't shake. Then it happened. A low rumble like rolling thunder emerged from behind us, and I turned to see a small plume of smoke rising. Confusion rippled through the crowd, turning fear into something akin to horror. "Look!" someone shouted. "We need to get out now." My heart sank as dread pooled in my stomach. I pulled Ethan tighter against me, bracing for the worst, while Mark's spine stiffened, eyes wide with alarm. "We can't stop now," I urged, my voice cracking. "Ethan, just keep moving forward. We're almost there." But as we edged closer to safety, the officer's voice pierced through the chaos. "This way. Everyone needs to follow me." Suddenly the crowd surged toward him, but the pushing and shoving created ripples of panic that rippled through the sea of frightened faces. Ethan pulled away, fear flooding his features as he cried out, "Mom! Daddy!" In a heartbeat, the world felt like it was cracking open beneath us, his small voice swallowed by the tumult. I turned just in time to see the panic-stricken expressions surrounding us unleash their unbridled energy towards the exit.No. Mark lunged forward, his face twisted in anguish, trying to reach Ethan, but the waves of bodies between them were impenetrable. "Ethan!" he shouted, desperation ratcheting the tension to unbearable heights. I was paralyzed, torn between the instinct to shield my son and the reality that he was slipping from our grasp. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out, a voice slicing through the chaos that found its way straight into my heart. "Let him go!" shouted the janitor, breaking through the throng. "Help the children. Take care of the kids first. It was an unexpected lifeline thrown amid the storm, a call to action that pierced my own turmoil. And when I glanced around, I noticed others, two parents rallying, strangers stepping in, a chain reaction of kindness emerging against the shadow of fear. But as reality continued to spiral out of our control, I searched frantically for Ethan, spotting him a few yards away, his little frame trapped in the tide of bodies. My breath caught in my throat as anguish echoed through me. Ethan! I screamed, reaching out with every ounce of strength I had left. Incoming! In that heartbeat, the world around us held its breath, time suspended, hearts quaking at the precipice of uncertainty. Would I be able to reach him in time? Would the chaos consume us whole before we could reclaim our connection? And deep within that swirling tumult, the frail thread that was our unity began to unravel. The unspoken fears, the love that coursed through our veins, all threatened to slip away into the shadows, leaving just an echo of a mother's heart consumed by singular terror. Without hesitation, I sprinted, propelled by desperation fueled by both instinct and a mother's unwavering will. In a world of confusion, love became a beacon, and I hoped against hope that what lay at the end would restore the bond we feared might shatter forever. Panic surged around me, a tidal wave threatening to sweep everyone away. Every face I encountered brimmed with dread, a reflection of their own stakes in this horrid moment. But my world had narrowed to one singular focus: Ethan. He was still out there, within grasp but painfully far, trapped within the swirling dance of fear. Ethan! I called again, pushing through the bodies that pressed against me like a relentless crush. Each person was another barrier, a reminder of how easily our lives could be separated, how effortlessly chaos could sever the most sacred bonds. That I spotted him, his wide eyes glistening with terror, straining against the tide that pulled him away. My heart clenched, and for an agonizing moment, I froze, arms flailing as I fought against my own panic. Wait! I'm right here! I cried, my voice raw, breaking beneath the weight of my fear. A hand brushed against my shoulder mark. I turned to see him struggling forward, every muscle in his body tight with urgency as he fought against the current of terrified bodies. Well, reach him! Together! He shouted, a fire igniting in his gaze. His confidence steadied me momentarily, but as the crowd surged again, the hope that had flickered briefly began to fade. I watched helplessly as Ethan's eyes darted, frantic and wild, searching for my face. Desperation coiled around my throat. Please, hold on, baby. Just hold on. Then came the unexpected kindness of the elderly woman who had offered her support moments ago. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong for her frail form. He's not lost yet. Come with me, she urged, pulling me toward a determined group of adults who had banded together near the entrance, creating a human wall to shield the children from the panic. With renewed determination, I followed her, the scent of sweat and fear intermingling as we pushed forward. Ethan! I yelled again, not caring who heard me, praying that he could sense my presence clawing through the chaos. All right. We can do this. The woman shouted back at the gathering throng behind us. You're almost there, kids. Keep moving forward. Finally, as if fate provided a sliver of mercy, I felt a slight loosening of the crowd. I could see Ethan's small figure lurching ahead, his face now filled with confusion and fear mingled with the first glimmerings of hope. Mom! He cried again, his voice now clear through the din. I surged forward, propelled by a mix of fear and adrenaline. That moment felt like a sacrosanct vow, a bridge I dared to cross. I reached for him, fingers stretching, desperate for that warmth and familiar touch. I'm coming, Ethan. I'm right here. And then it happened, the moment where seconds became eternity. I grasped his wrist, pulling him back to me, heart racing as the rest of the world dimmed. I've got you, sweetheart, I breathed, relief washing over me in waves. Don't let go. He whimpered, tiny fingers wrapping themselves around mine with an iron grip. The warmth of his touch ignited a fierce resolve within me, even as the turmoil around us continued. As I pulled Ethan close, Mark joined us, enveloping us both in his solid presence. We're okay now, he whispered, though the tremor in his voice betrayed the horror that still lingered. The crowd began to calm, a ripple of unity forming as we ensured every child was accounted for. But I remained acutely aware of the haunting shadows of fear that danced just out of sight. Then, just when we felt the first glimmers of control returning, the officer's voice pierced the air again, concern lacing his tone. "We need to finalize the evacuation procedures, stay alert." The urgency brought with it the reminder that the crisis was far from over. But something in the air changed, thickening with the realization that we were no longer alone. We had connected. Together with strangers, we stood united against the chaos. I looked towards the elderly woman, gratitude swelling in my chest, but my breath caught in my throat at what I saw as she turned her face, revealing it gripped with the same anxiety that had haunted us all. "Are we safe?" Ethan whispered, his small voice barely audible. "Yes, love. We are safe," I replied, though doubt gnawed at my insides. For now, then a new noise pierced the air, a scream cracking through the fragile boundary that had formed around us. The sound cut through the brief moment of hope, reminder that not everyone had found their loved ones yet. "It's Anna. Mom. Anna." A mother shouted, her voice filled with anguish, shaking everything inside me again. My heart dropped. The turmoil of grief and desperation erupted once more, people once again pushed and shifted, the tension in the air rising. And then, without warning, Ethan stiffened beside me. "Mom. Is that?" His eyes widened, and I followed his gaze, my own pulse quickening with dread. No, it couldn't be. I turned out of that swirling chaos, through a haze of bodies caught in a whirlwind of fright. I caught the glimmering eyes of a figure. A face both familiar and foreign, tethered to a past I had thought severed forever, a presence I never expected to confront today, especially not amidst such turmoil. No, I gasped, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet as everything I knew felt precariously on the edge of me, heart racing at the resurfacing of unresolved fears that might shatter the fragile hope I had managed to gather. As the realization settled, a new conflict surged within me, shattering the momentary calm, the echoes of the past colliding with the immediacy of the present. Would he extend kindness in this moment of chaos, or was it a harbinger of yet more heartbreak to come? The world around me felt like it was collapsing as I caught sight of the familiar face emerging from the chaos. It was Ethan's father, not Mark, but the other man whose name I could barely utter, whose presence had become a ghost shadowed by painful memories. Chris. I had thought I would never have to confront the frailties of my former life, not amidst this whirlwind of life and death. Chris. The word fell from my lips, hollow and disbelieving. My heart raced, volleying between fear and a pulsing resolve. How could he be here now, in this very moment when the storm of emotions swirled, when Ethan needed us most? "What are you doing here?" My voice trembled, a mixture of anger and disbelief that I heard about the incident. He called over the cacophony, his eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for something or someone. "I came to help. I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner." But his apologies felt like a prelude, a mere echo of past failures that amplified within me. I shook my head, tears threatening to spill over the horror of this reunion, of the heartache etched painfully in the air. Ethan stood beside me, confusion wavering in those bright blue eyes. "Mom, who is that?" he whispered, fingers trembling around mine as if sensing the tremors in my soul. I could feel the weight of so many unsaid things hanging above us, like a storm cloud prepared to unleash its deluge. "Hesamione from the past," I managed, my voice unraveling under the weight of my emotions. Chris took a step forward, hands raised as if to show he meant no harm, but fear sparked in my chest like fire igniting a trail of dry grass. How could I let my heart open to him again? The grief of his absence was still raw within me, a wound that had never fully healed while I fought to protect Ethan, while I fought for our future. "Charlotte, please, I know this isn't the time," Chris continued, adopting a calmness that felt both genuine and foreign. "But your son needs us. We need to work together to keep him safe." "Why now? Why after all this time?" The bitter words fell from my lips, spilling frustrations that had simmered for years. "You walked away when it mattered most, because I was scared. I thought it was better to give you Spacito, let you find your way without the burden of my shadow. But I was wrong. His voice broke slightly, a hint of vulnerability slipping through his bravado, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the boy I once loved behind the man standing before me. A flicker of the kindness we shared in our rush of youth. Mark's hand tightened around Ethan's shoulder, silently providing the steadying presence I desperately needed. I sensed his uncertainty and anger simmering beneath the surface as he processed Chris' intrusion still lingering in the whirlwind. Ethan tugged on my hand again, his small voice brimming with both innocence and worry. "Mom, are we okay?" "Yes. Yes, we're okay. We just need to stick together." I lied, but my heart thundered with the knowledge that the storm was far from calmed. Just then, chaos struck again, as another wave of voices flooded the chaos surrounding us. The police moved quickly, clearing the street, directing families towards a holding area. I grasped Ethan tighter, shielding him from the turmoil, refusing to let anything pull him from my grasp. No one was going to take him away from me again. We're safe. Together, I repeated, feeling the defiance rise within me. I directed my gaze back to Chris, straddling the line between forgiveness and the remnant pain that he carried like a shroud. I sighed, emotion swelling thickly in the air, lightning bolts of possibility firing between us. Perhaps this fleeting moment of connection, the union of paths diverged and reunited, could transform into something meaningful. If you want to help Ethan, then show me you're committed to being here. Being present. No more running away. Chris nodded vigorously, determination etched into his features, as the fear and uncertainty began to blend into something more tangible, something that resembled hope. In that moment, despite the shadows that lingered amidst the chaos, I recognized the stirrings of reconciliation, a tentative promise, maybe bridging two fractured lives separated by so many seasons of trial. As the crowd began settling down, families were reuniting, the clamor of distress quelled by the growing sense of unity among parents and children. Those glimmers of support started to manifest: the elderly woman managing a small group of children, the janitor working tirelessly to ensure every corner was checked. "Ethan, look. See, they're all helping each other." I pointed towards them, hoping the warmth of community would seep through his uncertainty. There was comfort in seeing that human kindness had prevailed against the chaos engulfing us. "I don't want the world to be scary," he whispered, eyes reflecting all the uncertainty life had already filled him with. "It won't always be," I replied, determined to weave reassurance back into our lives. "As long as we fight together for you, we'll find a way." Just as I grasped that tiny flicker of faith, the moment landed heavily upon us again as Mark put his arm protectively around us. Chris stood tall nearby, an unexpected ally now, relaying his calm energy to the chaos. And there we were, three parents, fighting for our son, a bond forged through the horror we had never imagined facing. Together, we would build a world of safety beyond the madness that had threatened to consume us all. As I caught Ethan's gaze, I felt warmth unravel within me, illuminating the path toward acceptance, forgiveness, and resilience. "Mom." Ethan's voice pulled me from my thoughts, and the glimmer in his eyes sparked something deeper than fear, a sense of belonging I had long yearned for. "Can we find the cleaner again? She made me feel safe." I liked her. The word struck me with an unexpected force. I thought of the woman whose presence so effortlessly anchored Ethan's fragile mind, whose kindness had sparked the first real connection. "I think we can." Just when I felt a hint of calm settle over us, a cop approached Chris and me. "I need to speak with you both about the next steps," he said firmly. And as the weighty pressure of responsibility settled around us, fear and hope tangled within my heart. What I had never expected was unfolding before us. Chaos merged with the unexpected courage stemming from moments of vulnerability. In that instant, I understood. Just as the world turned unpredictable, so too did people find strength they never knew they had. With hope flickering brightly within the amalgamation of loss and newfound possibilities, I realized that perhaps, together, we might build a bridge to safety on the shaky ground upon which we stood. And as we turned back towards our son, bound by love, committed to fight for him, his reached out to grasp the hand of possibility, a resolute connection born from the tragedy scrambling around us. "Together, Ethan. We do this together," I breathed, steeling myself, ready for the uncharted course of life that lay ahead. Every moment from this point would define us, shape us, melding into a breathtaking narrative of courageous journey shrouded in the unyielding bonds of love. Together, Ethan echoed, a perfect repetition of our resolve. And as I looked around, I found the fragmented pieces of my heart slowly drifting back into alignment with newfound purpose, an unbreakable bond weaving threads of connection carrying us forward into the light. Together is where we found our strength. And together, we would navigate whatever lay ahead, hand in hand, heart in heart, toward the horizon that dawned just beyond the chaos that had threatened to consume us. In that moment, the world felt just a little brighter.